let's call it 40% of the story, and that's the fundamental density, improved transistors, those kinds of things. But frankly, we have to do many other things. And so in the gray is what we would consider, let's call it the silicon-based things. So you can do things like you can increase the die size, so you get more transistors for each given generation. You can increase the power. You notice that power has been increasing as we have gone over the last 5, 6, 7 years. And then you have, let's call it the more architectural things. So microarchitecture, for example, extremely important, and we'll talk a little bit more about microarchitecture. Power management, extremely important. Whether you're talking about mobile power management or you're talking about power management on big server die, your performance is basically limited by your power, and so the extensive power management techniques are being utilized today. And then, of course, there's a huge importance of optimizing both architecture and software together. And so this just gives you, a sliver of some of the compiler optimizations that have been done. Let's call it silicon advances, and about 40% of it are more architectural and software advances. So lots of work to do on each of these vectors. Now, what we'll go into, frankly, is it's getting harder and harder on each of these vectors. And so we're pulling out yet new tricks and new ideas to extend high-performance computing. Taking a look at some of these barriers of performance improvement that you see in the trend. Like I said, you can say whether Moore's law is alive or dead. I think it's fair to say Moore's law is slowing. We love new technologies. 7 nanometer is a great technology. It's one that we believe has provided tremendous value, and 5 nanometer will be there as well. But the distance between nodes is increasing. So the distance between 14 nanometer and 10/7 has increased, and that has reduced some of the performance gains that we've gotten just based on process technology. The other thing, since I'm a CEO, I can talk about this, right? Costs continue to increase. And at the end of the day, the cost per millimeter squared, or the cost per transistor, really allows you to decide where do you use that great process technology. You will not choose to use that new technology everywhere, because frankly, it doesn't pay off. But you will use it on the most important transistors. And that's a trend that will continue to increase as we go forward in time, just given the complexity of process technologies going forward. Take a look at SoC power trends. The idea that power has become sort of the first order optimization, I think really came about over the last, let's call it 7, 8 years. But we keep trying to push the envelope, right? On our highest performance processors, as well as our competitors, we keep trying to push the envelope on power. We've gotten better in terms of cooling technologies and cooling capabilities, but still, you're only increasing power, let's call it on the order of high single-digit percentage per year. So we'll keep trying to push the envelope, but you do reach some important, just physical capabilities and how you can cool silicon. The other thing that's pretty interesting is if you look at the donut, we started with our goal in life is to do as much computation as possible. And so that's what we're trying to do with all of our processors. But you realize that the pure computation portion of it is actually not that big. The power that is utilized on computation is about 1/3 of the overall processor power. And you end up spending a lot of power on the I/O and the interfaces and really getting things on and off chip. And so that, again, is one of the reasons that we're not getting as much benefit from scaling as we go forward. We also look at die size. Our chips are getting bigger and bigger. And as our chips get bigger and bigger, we're trying to get more computation on chip. But at some point, you do meet the fundamental limits of the reticle size. I know later today you'll hear a little bit about other techniques of doing that, but when you look at it overall, when you look at our large GPUs, they are really pushing sort of the very large die sizes. And when you have very large die sizes, frankly, you're not very efficient in what you're doing with the technology. The yields are poor, the costs are higher, and there's a lot of routing across the chip that must happen. So, we have seen these increases in die sizes over the last 10 years, but that will also slow, given some of these fundamental principles. So, what do we do about all this? And as I said earlier, the wonderful thing about technology is when you put good engineers to work, they find great solutions for some of the challenges. And what I'm going to go through over the rest of the talk is just some of the ideas that we've implemented in AMD products, as well as others that we've implemented as you look at trying to solve some of these fundamental scaling challenges. And the way I like to say this is, our industry is about making big bets. Right? We make decisions really 3 to 5 years, sort of ahead of when you actually see something in product. And so you have to make the right decisions, or you have to make more right decisions than not. And some of these techniques are exactly that. Trying to predict where do we think those limitations are going to be in the future, and ensuring that we make the right bets to keep extending processor performance going forward. So a couple of things. When you look at performance, we're going to look at performance very holistically. And this is not a single company view. Frankly, from my perspective, the only way we're going to be successful at staying above the curve in terms of high performance computing is if the ecosystem works together. So whether you are a silicon provider or a systems company or a software company or all of the above, because often you have to combine all of the above. I think the ability for us to bring together the best of the ecosystem in silicon systems and software is really, really important for us to maintain the trends around high performance computing. So in terms of silicon advances, I'll talk about a couple of things. I think you heard from our team this morning about our Zen 2 architecture, and they went into detail about what went into that architecture, but that's one of the key things. One of the key things for maintaining the performance increases of high performance computing is to ensure that you have a very, very optimized microarchitecture. And the funny thing is, just when you think you've finished one generation, you realize all of the things that you didn't get done, and you put that into the next generation. So when you look at our Zen architectural lineup, you start first with what the industry trend line is in terms of improvement, and the industry trend line, depending on how you look at it, is anywhere around mid to high single digits in terms of IPC improvement over the last 5 or 6 years. The Zen microarchitecture was introduced in 2017. We've enhanced that with the Zen 2 microarchitecture that was introduced this year in 2019. We have the Zen 3 and the Zen 4 microarchitectures that are deep in development. And our goal is to stay above the industry trend line. That's our goal. And as much as you learn in each generation, we learn in the first generation of Zen what we can improve in Zen 2, and that's going on into the future generations as well. And when you take a look at those types of optimizations, they really have significant improvements in the workloads. So if you just take a look at IPC, the top chart is the components of expected rates as you look across the various components, and it shows the IPC uplift Zen 2, Zen 1 across the various components. And you can see we get about an average of 15% or so. And that comes from the improvements in our architecture, the improvements in some of the memory latencies, and so on and so forth. But when we take it to server workloads, and when we take it to multi-threaded workloads and throughput workloads, the bottom chart shows in a 32-core processor comparing Zen 2 to Zen 1, you actually see significantly more uplift. And that is, optimization on every part of the system counts. And in this particular case, server workloads, a lot of throughput. And with that, the enhanced memory architecture, the better memory bandwidth, as well as some better multi-threaded performance results in significantly higher uplifts on multi-threaded workloads compared to single-threaded workloads. So that's an example of a set of focused efforts that result in significant microarchitectural improvements. Now, the other piece of sort of the big industry trend is, I mentioned the fact that die sizes are getting to the point of the radical limit, and transistors are extremely expensive. And so when you see those two trends, we saw those two trends certainly back in the 2013-14 timeframe. We said, look, something has to change. You cannot keep doing just bigger and bigger monolithic chips. You can, you can do it, but you just won't get performance. And you won't see the curve bend over. And so we made a big investment in multi-chip architectures. And again, if you look at our first generation EPIC architecture, Zen-based architecture, it was really based on, we called it 4 chiplets, which were uniform chiplets that were put on a multi-chip module. And the idea of this, again, was to get more bang for your buck. It was to ensure that you got more performance at a better cost point. So we got better yield by using smaller die. With that, we had a nice architecture. With that, as we migrated into 7 nanometer, we enhanced this idea of chiplets to really try to optimize the right transistor for the right technology. So in the 2nd generation EPIC, which was just launched very recently, on both our desktop processors as well as our server processors, we decided that the most valuable transistors were the CPU, and so those were done in 7 nanometer. But the I/O memory, frankly, which wasn't scaling all that well, was actually done in an older generation technology, in 12 nanometer. And so what you see with that is each IP is in its optimal process technology. You actually get a very nice architecture, and it breaks some of those trends of the radical limit, as well as some of the trends of the cost per transistor. And frankly, it gives us a ton of flexibility. So with the same basic design, we can go across high-performance desktops. You will see this in high-performance workstations, as well as high-performance servers. So it's an example where innovation around chiplet architectures really gives you tremendous bang for your buck going forward. Now, when you look at what that means from the technology curve, as you said, our goal is to always stay above the industry curve. So if you look at this, this is historical data center performance over the last 5 years, and it's showing 2-socket server performance. And again, you see sort of a steady trend somewhere between 15 to 20% a year. The way you get that is you're increasing power budgets, you're increasing die area, in many cases you're increasing cost. But with the Zen-based architectures, you actually see a significant change in the slope of the performance. So going from first generation of Zen architecture to the 2nd generation of Zen architecture in a server configuration, we're actually able to double the number of cores, double the performance, significantly enhance the single-threaded performance, and most importantly, significantly enhance the total cost of ownership, which is what's important to data center guys. So an example of where some of the bets actually have paid off significantly in enabling us to go above the curve. Now let's talk about some of the more interesting parts of the system design, because as I said, in addition to all of the things that you do in silicon, which are we all love to do, we all love to optimize, there's a substantial amount that you have to do on the system side. And frankly, the more you know about the application, the better we are able to optimize both system as well as silicon. So, the key, and obviously, again, over the last number of years, it's really become apparent that there is no one-size-fits-all in computing. As important as CPUs are, and we think they're extraordinarily important, there are numerous other parts of the system that have to be optimized. And that includes leading-edge GPUs, that includes FPGAs, as well as custom ASICs or accelerators. And the key in these computing platforms is you actually want to pick the best computing that you can for each application. So the idea is, depending on what your workload is, you might have a different ratio of CPUs to GPUs, or a different ratio of CPUs, GPUs, and accelerators, or depending on the maturity of your software, you may choose to want to use FPGAs versus fixed function ASICs, but all of that still needs to connect in a system, otherwise you're not going to get performance. However good your intrinsic piece of silicon is, if you don't have the right fabric or the right interconnect to put them all together, you're not going to get the performance that you anticipated with that great idea. So, our job at AMD, as well as our job with the ecosystem, is to figure out how we can put together very, very efficient computing platforms. And that requires innovation on every aspect of the system. So, again, how do you decide what to use? It very much depends on the application that you want to use. So if you look, this is a sort of a little bit of a stick diagram, but you get the drift, right? If you look at performance per watt versus application, the beauty of CPUs is that they do lots and lots of things. They're quite good on purpose. So you have a broad application space, or a broad software development community. For some functions, it will not be the best thing to use. If you use a GPU configuration, especially for highly parallel applications, you'll get better performance, you'll get good programmability, a narrower set of applications. If you want the ultimate in performance, you probably do need to use something custom, and whether that's a custom SoC or custom FPGA, custom basic, but you're designing for sort of a narrow application. And that has its own set of challenges in terms of the ecosystem. So we want systems that optimize for all of these different types of components. And with that, if I give you one example of what one of those systems look like, it's taking a high-performance CPU, connecting it to, let's call it a set of 4 GPU accelerators. You want the highest possible interconnect bandwidth between these devices. So pushing the envelope on getting PCI Gen 4 into the equation. Also optimizing the bandwidth between the components, so ensuring that we have the highest bandwidth between GPUs and GPUs. Also is very important for performance. And all of these end up becoming sort of the elements of what you can call an accelerated platform or a heterogeneous platform. So the other piece of it is knowing and understanding your software and knowing and understanding your application. So no matter how you look at it, we as silicon guys need to make sure that our silicon is as programmable as possible to deliver a system-level performance. And so from that standpoint, there is a whole bunch of stuff that is, let's call it, on the order of getting the most out of your silicon. We like to say we're trying to get the libraries, the profilers, debuggers, compilers, all of those things as optimized to silicon as possible. But then we also believe very, very strongly in an open source environment to sit on top of it so that everyone can contribute to this. And so whether you're talking about machine learning environments today, where many people are writing to TensorFlow or PyTorch or MXNet, we do all the work to make sure that on the tool side that is optimized in silicon. We want to make sure that the interfaces are open to the broader application environment. And so the key is, as we go forward, there's even more need to have this hardware and software co-optimization so that we get the best out of performance capabilities. So with that, you get sort of a view of what we believe are the important things to drive high-performance computing. And what I wanted to do now is really pivot to just one of those applications and give you an idea of what that looks like on a little bit more granular level. So we're talking about high-performance computing in a generic computing sense, that we want more and more compute cycles, but we can also talk about high-performance computing as it relates to HPC or supercomputers. So when I think of supercomputers as the best manifestation for all of the innovation that we can come up with, right? In some sense, for many supercomputers, cost is an object, but it's not the highest. It's not the first order object. The first order object is how you can do something that's never been done. And that's what supercomputers are really about, is how do we push the envelope with computing to enable us to learn something or to solve a problem that has never been solved before. And so when we look at sort of the explosion of HPC, it's really kind of interesting. I mean, it's gone through many, many gyrations of what people use supercomputing for. But whether you're talking about a commercial environment where you're trying to learn more about simulations around chemistry or medicine, or you're talking about learning more about climate change, learning more about space exploration, lots and lots of machine learning applications. All of these applications are really now mixing what was traditional HPC with the new machine learning methods. And I would say that most would agree that these two areas are actually coming together very quickly because they share many of the same characteristics, right? At the end of the day, you're trying to solve a very difficult problem that requires lots of computation and lends itself to parallelism. So those are true of traditional HPC applications as well as machine learning applications. And if you take a look at this chart, it just gives you some context of why it's so important. So what this is trying to show is basically the amount of time it takes to train versus some of the newer machine learning algorithms. And you can see there's just a tremendous amount of development on the algorithmic side. Frankly, you're getting much more sophisticated. In some of these cases, these algorithms are getting to the point where they approach humans or better. But what it also says is you need an incredible amount of computing power. So you saw in my earlier charts, I said CPUs and GPUs were about doubling, every, 2.5 years. In this case, for the most advanced algorithms, you're actually seeing a doubling of compute consumption every 3 or 4 months. I mean, if you think about that, it's actually a mind-boggling thing. So what that means is you can come up with these great algorithms, and either you take an incredibly long time to figure it out, or you build large compute farms, or you try to get more efficient compute. And you probably do a little bit of each of those things. But that motivates some of the reason that we really are trying to push the envelope significantly in this area in particular. The other thing to look at is if you look at the world's fastest supercomputers. So what this is plotting is if you look at the top 500 chart that's published every 6 months or so, this is plotting the top machine. And you can see that the top machine, over the last 20 plus years, has actually advanced faster than general purpose compute. So it has advanced about double every 1.2 years or so. But you see that that rate is slowing. So if you look at just post 2015, you can start to see this, the curve is bending over a little bit. And the reason the curve is bending over a little bit is you find that all of the barriers that I was talking about, in terms of the various barriers to high performance computing in the generic sense, end up affecting HPC as well, and probably to more of an extent. And so you see that bending there. So our goal is to use significant innovation to try to get that curve back on the line. And learning something about this, you can see the various things, right? If you look at, and this is an example of just a general workload around HPC system performance. In this case, we're looking again at that single CPU to 4 GPU configuration. You could use a different configuration, but this is a pretty common configuration to use. And you can see that in HPC systems, everything is important, but because we have that massive parallelism around floating point capability, you can see that the GPU computation is a significant piece of the runtime. CPU is also significant. The inter-node communication is significant, as well as the memory bandwidth, and then the bandwidth from node to node. So all of these things are important. All of these things need to be optimized sort of in HPs. And then the other thing that's really interesting is it does vary quite a bit workload to workload. So when you look at the performance elements, now looking at 2 different HPC workloads. The first one is a molecular dynamic simulation, so AMD is a key application. You can see this guy is very, very, very GPU intensive. So if all I wanted to do is to optimize AMD, I might spend most of my time on GPU computation. CPU is also there, as well as the memory bandwidth and the internal connectivity. And so that's one example, right? But if you look at the bottom example, you can see now this is a more typical machine learning algorithm, a transformer around natural language processing. It's actually a lot more balanced. It's actually a lot more balanced. So yes, GPUs are very important. CPUs are very important as part of this workload. The connectivity between CPU and GPU is important, the memory bandwidth, as well as the connectivity between the GPU and GPU. And so my point of showing you this is, anyone who tells you that if you just do this, everything's going to be perfect. This is just not the case. You have to do it all. You have to optimize CPUs, GPUs, the interconnect, the memory, as well as network bandwidth together to really push the envelope in HPC. So some of the things that are being done, certainly a lot of innovation on the GPU side. GPUs have become more and more prominent in HPC, and they will continue to be so. This idea of, if you think about having to get most efficient clocks, the addition of things like pattern math and unit math gives you the ability to get more efficient clocks across a number of different algorithms. And so that's going to continue. That's one of the key areas of innovation going on in GPUs today. If you look at connectivity between CPU and GPU, again, this is going to continue. One of the things we will say is that the connectivity is not increasing as fast as traditional compute. And so if you just take a look at PCIe speeds over the last 20 years, we're more like doubling every 4 to 5 years. This needs more work. Right? There needs to be more work around connectivity. We spend quite a bit of time optimizing that between our CPUs and GPUs. But that's certainly also an industry thing as we think about connectivity to accelerators as well. And then talking about memory bandwidth, again, if you take a look at the memory bandwidth over time, and in this case, you're looking at in the orange sort of memory bandwidth in a GPU, and in the lighter gray color, the floating point operations. Basically, what's happening is the curves are diverging a little bit. So although we're continuing to invest in very, very close coupling between the memory and the computing element, the number of the memory bandwidth over time is not quite keeping up. So the ratio of memory bandwidth to compute operations is diverging a bit. We are big believers in high bandwidth memory. I think high bandwidth memory has a strong roadmap that is important to continue on a aggressive pace. We also look at a lot of optimization within the die, so the on-die cache hierarchy can have a large impact on these memory bandwidths. But as you go forward, you can imagine that 3D stacking or other integration methods will help us extend this memory bandwidth curve as we need it to over time. And then, when you put all that together, so one of the things that we're very proud of is pushing the envelope in supercomputing. And so just a couple of months ago, AMD announced together in partnership with Oak Ridge National Labs, Department of Energy, as well as Cray, the next generation supercomputer at Oak Ridge, which is codenamed Frontier. Frontier is the system that will take advantage of all of these optimizations that I talked about. So highly optimized CPU, highly optimized GPU, highly optimized coherent interconnect between CPU and GPU, working together with Cray on the node-to-node latency and characteristics, really enables us to put together a leadership system. And that leadership system is both important for traditional HPC applications. So we'll talk about the system delivering over 1.5 exaflops when it launches in 2021 using these next generation architectures. But it's also very important for, like I said, AI and machine learning applications. So the scientists in the DOE laboratory systems can utilize this for a number of different applications, from traditional HPC to more commercial-like AI and ML applications. So the key is, what do we believe that we can do with this very close silicon system and software optimization? We believe at the time of launch that Frontier will be the highest performance supercomputer in 2021, and it extends the curve. It actually changes the curve once again so that we are going above the industry curve for high performance computing. And again, this is what we live for, right? It's how do we push the envelope on computing with all of these various elements. Of course, although these technologies are being designed for the highest performance supercomputers that have tremendous power and system capabilities, you'll see all these technologies also come into more commercial systems. And you'll see this in our next generation CPUs as well as our next generation GPUs as well to increase the computational efficiency. So with that, let me just summarize and again say we really believe, I believe, that high-performance computing is one of the most exciting spaces in semiconductors today. The applications are tremendous, and they continue to increase every day. You saw those training operations as well as just general compute applications. You need to do optimization on every level. On the foundational IP, so on the CPUs, the GPUs, and the ASICs, the foundational compute elements, on chiplet architectures that allow you to connect these guys in the most efficient way, on the interconnects that allow you to go across these different compute elements. Very important is the system and software optimization. We want to know what the application is doing. If we know what the application is doing, we will design better silicon going forward. And then, of course, we need to continue to push the envelope on technology scaling. And that continues to be a very long foundation. So we look forward to really working across the industry ecosystem to keep these curves. These exponential curves always look nice, and you always say, hey, it's going to fall off. I think the answer is there are enough smart people across the industry to make sure that we keep the lines extended as long as we keep pushing the envelope on innovation. So thank you very much for your time today.
All right, if you have any type of questions, so please come to the microphones that you name and affiliation. If there are people standing behind you, please ask one question and go back to the line so everybody gets a chance. Thanks.
Okay, my name is Dan. I want to ask you, what do you think we are on the hype curve with relation to AI application, which is, you say, pushing more and more? And what is kind of the next step of AMD, let's say, comparable to the TPUs?
Yeah. So I think the question was on, what is the sort of where's sort of the AI stuff going, and what is AMD doing with the TPUs and going forward. Look, I think there's tremendous innovation going on in the industry, right? The fact that there's so many startups and there's so many companies doing purpose-built ASICs around new algorithms is just an indication of how much excitement there is. I will say that over time, I think that's going to narrow. Right? I think we believe that's what usually happens. There's lots and lots of new ideas, and then over time it narrows to what are the ones that are most sustainable from a performance as well as a ecosystem standpoint. From an AMD standpoint, our goal, as I said, is to optimize each one of those elements. And that includes CPUs, GPUs, interconnects, that may include some purpose-built accelerators, but more important to us is connecting the ecosystem together. So, we would invite people to connect their accelerators to our CPUs and GPUs, across the various interconnects that are out there, because, I don't believe that any one company will have all the best ideas. And the more we can get to standards on the interconnects and standards on the software, the better that we're going to be for this next generation of AI.
So related to this question, right? So there are so many AI accelerators for machine learning and deep learning. So you mentioned that you can have an ecosystem which they can connect their accelerators to your CPUs and GPUs. So basically, you're saying the already plans for your own specific AI accelerator.
Yeah, we're talking about past strategy, not future strategy, right? No, look, you will absolutely see AMD as a role player in AI. Now, our desire to pick the winning solution, like I said, I believe there will be many solutions. There's not going to be one solution. And the importance is, we're putting much more purpose-built acceleration on our GPUs as well as on our future generation CPUs. So you'll see sort of more accelerators as a part of that. And then whether we do our own accelerator will really depend on sort of how this evolves going forward. But the interconnect strategy, the CPU and GPU strategy, the ecosystem strategy around the software, all of that stays the same.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Dara. This is from University. My question is from the academic standpoint. You mentioned that the power is increasing a lot, and I was wondering, do you see thermal as a bottleneck or as a limiting factor of this growth? And if the answer is yes, could you please briefly describe how you're addressing it?
Yeah, so definitely we see thermal as a big driver, and some of the folks from AMD here in the audience can talk a little bit more about what we've done. If you just look at the amount of power management on our newer generation processors in terms of the number of sensors, the sophistication of the algorithms to tune every part of the chip, to tune to various workloads. All of that is really important. We also look for how to best get the thermal sort of characteristics across the chip as uniform as possible, and obviously better cooling solutions. So the answer is no question that this is a huge part of the optimization. We tend to believe that we reach some limitations, but actually there's just a tremendous amount of sophistication in these newer generation processors to to tune practically every millimeter squared of the chip. Yes, please.
Michael Shea, UC Berkeley Extension. I have to agree. Thank you very much for an awesome summary about the computing and computing architecture. So exciting. I was wondering, this is my own age, being through risk versus risk, that kind of silly phenomenon in the past.
Did you say silly phenomenon?
Someone else said silly, but I was just trying to copy instead of creating my own analogy for that. Nowadays, I've been hearing a lot of different computing, such as, for example, neural computing, quantum computing, viral computing, and maybe bio computing. Do you see this type of X computing would also recreate the risk versus this type of excitement? Of course, I don't complain about that excitement. That created a 30 years job for me.
Well, I think we can all say for everybody in this room, we have at least a 30-year job, so I'm not worried about that. Look, I think all of those things are interesting. Right now, quantum computing is perhaps extremely interesting. It's the race to, who's going to get there. I think we are still at the early stages of figuring out, are these, let's call it more special purpose architectures, that they'll do some things well, but they won't necessarily be the next general purpose architecture. I don't think we know yet. I think we're still learning about those architectures. So, I think the philosophy here is that there's so much energy around optimizing, let's call it general purpose architectures, whether you call it CPU, GPU, accelerators, FPGAs, there's so much energy. And these new things have to intersect at some point. And I think it's still a little early to say when does it exactly intersect. So it's a great area of research that we're going to continue to do much more research in. And we'll see when they become a significant part of the computation landscape.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on, Lisa. My name is Bob. I would like to ask you a question for the younger crowd, probably one of your most demanding customer bases. I'm talking about gamers. You were talking in your talk, touched a couple of times about the GPU communications. Is this lead on to a hint, maybe some talk or some project of Crossfire coming back?
We love gamers. I say that often. When I'm announcing products, I talk a lot about gamers. Will Crossfire come back? I would say that GPU performance will continue to go at a very fast pace. Okay, we're doing a lot of stuff today. Frankly, the software on GPUs is probably going faster than the hardware. I'm not saying it won't, but I'm not saying that that's a significant focus. I think the idea of we can do so much still with GPUs in the consumer space is what we're looking for. Yeah, thank you.
Hi, Jeff Smith, Citadel. So I'm a platform architect for market making and creating machines, and so there's quite positive friction and overhead heterogeneous systems. So we love to hear that, and interchangeability and open stacks. So when you're going around with peer vendors and discussing standards for open fabrics and so forth, how much of that process is driven by sort of inside manufacturer points of view, and how much of the levels of abstraction and designs come from outside consumers of these aggregate systems?
I didn't catch the very first thing when you said what you were doing. Say it again.
Market making platform architect, so electronic trading.
Okay. Look, I think it's a really good point. You would be very surprised at how often this comment comes up of open ecosystems are absolutely critical. It comes from sort of our customers. So if you think of large data centers, scientific operations, nobody wants to design to somebody's specific architecture, frankly. because, you don't get the best of all worlds, right? So I think it also comes from, end users, who also want to see that, that optimization. It takes an incredible amount of time. I think that there is, the advent of these machine learning frameworks has really been a key piece of that, and will continue to be a key piece of that. But I think the more open that we can be in the ecosystem, the better we can optimize for all of the computing applications.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, Lisa, Ian from AMD. Good to see you, Joe, as always. Recently, we've noticed AMD have a new workstation-specific dedicated website and also advertise for workstation personnel. Can you speak about how your current strategy will develop in the workstation space, and also how that relates to certain product names that already exist, for example?
Yeah. This wasn't a product presentation. This was like a industry. No, I'll certainly answer that again. Look, we believe that we want computing to significantly advance. Like I said, whether you're talking about desktops or you're talking about servers or you're talking about workstations on the CPU as well as CPU side, I think, or if you're talking about notebooks. I think what you will see from us is the same techniques that we brought in with Zen and the next generation graphics architectures will flow through all of these product lines at some point in time. I know there's a lot of interest around Threadripper. I think people are wondering when we're going to launch Threadripper. I can say that the third generation Threadripper will be coming forward. Does that help?
No.
How about less than a year? Does that help?
If I keep saying no, she'll just
Just say no, yeah.
I think we get to the point that I understand there's excitement around Threadripper. We have just launched our desktop product, and we'll still see Threadripper soon.